All right, hi everyone, and welcome to the second day of Into the Box 2020. I hope you all enjoyed the first day of the conference and are ready for another round of great sessions. My name is Jorge Reyes, and I'll be kicking things off for you this morning, live from Basel, Switzerland. Grüezi Monant. I actually had this slide ready for you, just in case I had to apologize for Sokoko or Zoom crashing on us yesterday, or something like that, but I'm glad that didn't actually happen. Things have been okay technically wise, so I would say. So I can skip this one. Yes, the internets have been good to us, guys. I hope things remain that way for today. However, in case something happens, please remember that all sessions are being recorded. So you don't have to worry about losing any content, and we will make them available to you soon. Eric has some details about this, but this time we're not going to spend billions of dollars editing the videos. So for the sake of getting them to you as soon as possible and not breaking the bank, we're just going to try to upload Zoom recordings as they are for each individual session. I believe it's very likely that we're going to have them ready for you in the next few days. I have one quick announcement, and that is that you have the opportunity to win a prize today in a very simple way. The only thing you have to do is to visit one of our sponsors' booth and talk to them. That's it. Just in case you haven't noticed, the sponsors' booths are located here, right in the middle of our venue, where the red arrows are pointing. And by clicking on one of the sponsors' rooms, or any Sokoko room for that matter, your avatar will move into that room, and you'll be able to start a conversation with the users in that room. In this case, the sponsors. You can chat with them through the embedded Sokoko chat. You can jump on a Zoom call with them like we're doing right now. Or actually, the most straightforward way to do that is to activate the embedded Sokoko video and audio features, which are different than the Zoom ones, by the way. So if you go and talk to the sponsors today, they will give you a code, a unique code. That's very important because once you have that code, you have the keys to enter the raffle. After you've received the code, the only thing left for you to do is to go to the Ortus booth, right where the green arrow is pointing, and select among the shared resources the sponsors raffle registration form, and submit your name and email with the code, and that's it. You're officially in the raffle, and you will finally have the opportunity to make all your dreams come true. If you visit all three sponsors, you will have 3 codes, and you may submit 3 different raffle registrations, thus increasing your chances of winning. The raffle will take place at the end of the conference, and it doesn't really matter if you're not around anymore by that time. I hope you are, but if you aren't, don't worry. If you're one of the many winners of today, as long as you've submitted your email correctly, we'll make sure that you get your prize. We'll be giving away books, Box Life merchandise, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So don't forget to go and explore the sponsors' booths today. Life is more than software. I need you to all read that out loud in your mind. Life is more than software. Think about it for a moment. Think about what that means to you. This is a section that has been part of our conference ever since we started. The very first version of it back in the days where it was organized as a pre-conference event for CF Objective in Minneapolis. That was back in 2013, I believe. And in this brief section of our event, our goal is to remind you that indeed life is more than software, that there are other things in life as important or more important than software, things like family, peace of mind, serving others, and helping others. At Ortus, we're committed to give away a percentage of everything that we make to help others. And there's one particular nonprofit organization that we've been supporting for more than 10 years now. And that is the Shalom Children Home in El Salvador. We have a video about Shalom Children Home playing between breaks. We've been doing that since yesterday. I was going to play it today, but I realized you guys have probably seen it. If not, the next time it plays, please take a look at it, because in that video, you're going to be able to see about who they are and what they do. And you'll be able to actually see how these people dedicate their lives to help kids and the young in El Salvador to overcome adversity amid the roughest of life conditions. It's pretty amazing, and it's definitely a purposeful nonprofit organization. And we want you to know that today, your ticket counts for these kids because 20% of your ticket price will be sent to the Shalom Children Home. So today you have officially become a part of the good news of help and hope for these kids back in El Salvador. So for that, we thank you all from all our hearts. If you're interested in getting to know more about them and supporting them even further, and maybe making a donation yourself directly, you can visit their website at harvesting.org. Now back to our virtual world. This is how our virtual auditorium looked like yesterday during the keynote. Pretty cool. All the colored dots, paying attention to Jeff, apparently, who happened to have showed up early enough to hijack the presenter's table. So thank you, Jeff, which is probably not your name, but your initials or something. Anyway, this is a quite drastic change of the format of the conference, and we feel extremely grateful towards you for that. Towards our sponsors who stay with us even after we decided to go virtual. We feel grateful to our speakers from around the world. It was really incredible to see that we could even keep the original on-site schedule intact because all of them were willing to honor their commitment, even though we would have totally understood if they had not been able to do it, particular speakers in Europe who face some time zone challenges. So thank you guys for your loyalty. And of course, we feel grateful with you guys for joining and supporting our event. This pandemic has definitely forced us to change the way we've been used to doing things. It has affected every single one of us in some shape or form or degree. It has impacted many industries and businesses around the world, including our clients. Millions of people have lost their jobs by now, and millions of people are going through some struggles, financially, emotionally. Maybe not you, I wish not you, but there are certainly a lot of people at the moment waking up every day into a reality that comes with a very heavy burden. And for us, what that means is that there are now more opportunities for us to help others. Let me say it in a different way. The current crisis is presenting opportunities to you and to me to go and help others. And I want to motivate you today to take some time to think about others, how you could help someone in need. How can you become this agent of service and make an impact in someone else's life? Because I can tell you this, when the current crisis is over, I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but it will be over. The relationships with those who you have helped or have helped you through the crisis will only come out stronger. And I'm talking about both professional and personal relationships here. So in that sense, even amid all the lockdowns and quarantines and social distancing, there's this great opportunity in front of us to bring us closer to others by offering a helping hand. So please keep that in mind. Helping and serving others is one of our core values at Ortus. And again, we're not talking only about software here. So today, if you're one of those who are currently personally struggling, please know that you're not alone. We have opened up a virtual room dedicated to prayer, where you can go and tune into some nice worship music, have a good read and pray. And in that room, you also have the option to fill out a form where you can submit any prayer you may have for yourself, for your loved ones, or for whomever. You don't even have to share with us your name when submitting your prayer request. You can certainly do that anonymously if you prefer. We would just love to have the opportunity to pray for you. And we don't need to know your name in order to pray for you. So God already knows who you are. No need for that. So I'm really looking forward to connecting with you, or some of you later on today in the prayer room, or you can just ping me directly through the Sococo chat. Moving into another special core value of Ortus, which is a big part of who we are as a company and as a family. I want to talk a little bit about open source. After all, Ortus is open source. We breathe open source. We eat open source. We are open source. This year, in the pursuit of growing and expanding and diversifying, we've started to work towards our commercial product strategy more intentionally than ever. It is not that we hadn't done commercial products in the past. Our Couchbase extension, for example, is quite a few years old. It has been out there for a while. But we hadn't actually started pursuing commercial products as formally as this year. And we've certainly faced some challenges along the way already. Some of those challenges are just part of the process, but I must humbly admit that some of the challenges or even the mistakes that we have made so far are also related to the way we have been used to do things in the past, which is the Ortus way, the open source way. To be honest, one of the biggest challenges in this commercial initiative is that deep down in our souls, we are open source and we're driven by a very intense open source mentality. And I'm not saying that open source strategy is easier or easy at all. I think it may be actually harder. However, we have a lot of years of experience now working with open source, and we have come a long way in optimizing the way we operate to ensure a sustainable and healthy business operation while maintaining an open source value proposition at our core. But developing a commercial product strategy requires a completely different way of thinking in many aspects. There are different metrics to analyze. There's different data to collect, different perspectives to consider, different expectations to manage on long, etc. Nevertheless, for the next years to come, we'll be strongly pursuing to create and develop a bigger, better, and bolder commercial product offering for you guys. And we're definitely excited about that. This is our current commercial offering, which is not that big. I'm missing here some of the new ForgeBox flavors that Luis mentioned yesterday during the keynote. I'm also missing the Ubuntu, Lucy, Nginx, Amazon image. But even with those, the list is quite small compared to the almost 400 open source projects that we actively develop and maintain. But we're planning to move strong on this and start providing more value through the commercial avenue as well now. Even though currently it still feels a bit unnatural for us, and we certainly expect to make some mistakes along the way still, particularly in terms of product pricing and placing. But please bear with us because we're figuring this out along the way, and we will perfect our commercial strategy with time as well. Having said that, our open source arm is growing bigger and stronger every day with about 400 open source projects. Our open source initiatives are still our main focal point of ongoing development efforts, and we certainly plan to keep things that way. And with all these products, tools, and libraries and all that, what we mainly seek is to empower the CFML community of people, developers, and businesses to do modern CFML web development. So for those of you still living and dealing with legacy, living in legacy land, you are running out of excuses now. Please feel free to contact us if you need any assistance. We will be happy to help you get out of there. So no need to worry about us losing sight of our open source branch. We have the biggest and most exciting plans for next year's activities. And we plan to continue to change the world one pull request at a time. To all CFML developers out there listening to this keynote, please know this. If there's one thing that drives us forward, is our constant pursuit and passion for discovering and creating tools to make your life as a developer not only easier, but more exciting. A lot of the topics that our team members have presented already or will be presenting today in the last conference day are a taste of all the new and exciting things you can actually do now as a CFML developer. We hope you will find them all useful and you can learn how to make the most out of them. If you're interested in supporting us, there are 4 things you can actually do to help us with our modernization efforts. The first thing you can do to support us is to contribute to one of our open source projects directly. That can be as simple as creating a ticket or grabbing a ticket for one of our projects and taking care of it yourself. If you want to know how that works on our end, every time you submit a pull request, there's joy and cheer in Ortus. There really is, right? Yeah, I want you to picture this. If you remember one of those Coca-Cola ads, the one that follows the bottle of Coke on its way through the Coca-Cola vending machine, if you recall how everything is just like a big party and all these little weird creatures just are they just full of joy and sheer happiness? That's exactly what happens at Ortus when you send a pull request. So I want you to keep that in mind and make us celebrate from time to time. The second thing you can do to support us is to look for us in Patreon and pledge an amount to support our costs. It doesn't really matter if it's only $10 a month, whatever it is, it's fuel for us. It helps us keep going. And I promise we will burn every ounce of that fuel in the pursuit of modernization. I can guarantee you that. The third way you can support us is actually not that well known, and that is through our Ortus support subscriptions. If you go to our website, ortussolutions.com, and the services section, support section specifically, what happens when you sign up for a yearly subscription for one of our support plans is that half of that money goes directly into our open source efforts. This is a very nice way to support us because not only you're helping us create awesome open source stuff, but at the same time, you are gaining access to our senior development team, which is composed by genuine CFML developer rock stars who will be available for you in case you need any assistance from us. So I think this one is a pretty good deal. And last but not least, you can support us through the Box Live online shop. We just opened it up for you guys. We have everything: mugs, t-shirts, keychains, pens, jumpers, among other great stuff, because Edgardo just went nuts on creating all the products. And any merchandise you purchase there, 100% of what we make goes into an open source project. We were running some serious numbers with Luis on Wednesday about this, and I think the number we came up with was about 15 cold box t-shirts will buy us something between 4 or 5 minutes of Brad's time to work on command box. So the economies of scale are pretty important there. But hey, any help counts, guys. So we appreciate it. I want to close this section thanking all our patrons who have pledged a monthly amount to support our costs. Thank you, patrons, for your trust, your loyalty, and commitment to support us. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it. And that's it from my end. In summary, don't forget to go talk to our sponsors and join the raffle. You may miss your chance of true love and happiness if you don't. Amid the crisis, look for someone you can help. You will realize that by helping others, you will be able to help yourself as well. Expect a lot more from us in terms of commercial products coming up in the next months and years. Your feedback and support, of course, to help us make this a good value proposition for everybody is welcome and appreciated. And don't forget to sponsor our open source branch if you believe in our cause and what we're doing. That's it. Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for listening. I leave you now in the hands of Capitan Container, AKA John Clausen.
Thanks, Jorge. Jorge promised me a handsome picture in the rehearsal.
I complied. I complied.
Handsome picture. Yeah, I know, but it's an old one, and I've got to update that. So.
Oh, sorry, man.
Sure. But it's still it was handsome back in the day. So. All right. Well, first of all, thanks, Jorge, and thank you all. Welcome to the second day of Into the Box. We'll talk a little bit about containerization and our ongoing containerization strategy. About 4 years ago, we started talking about containers at the first Into the Box, and progressively we've done more and more workshops. And one of the things that has happened in the past year is that the space has absolutely exploded with more and more adopters for CFML and a lot of innovation in the community as well. So let's talk a little bit about containerization, our 2019-20 accomplishment. As of 2 days ago, we were at 453,200 pulls and counting. So I'm guessing by this point today, we're probably somewhere around 460,000. That's a 900% increase in the last 12 months. We were, so there's a significant explosion in the last 12 months in the number of pulls and counting. Right now, we currently are building 18 variations with each pull, with each release of the Docker command box images. So we've got versions with Alpine, we've got baked versions and pre-warmed versions with all of the engines, Adobe 11 through 2018, as well as Lucy 5. We've got a light version that's up there as well. And we've also had 7 releases in the past 12 months of the image, including some really great performance improvements. So for example, ease of onboarding and new really fast time to live configuration options allow your containers to start up faster than they did before, using less resources than they ever have. So they're leaner, they're meaner, they're faster. And in addition, we've had ongoing robust community support and networking contributions. A lot of folks have been taking an interest. They've been using it. They've been suggesting and making improvements, pull requesting or filing issues on those command box images. And we keep getting better and better. So to give you an example on the number of pulls and how that compares, that number of pull count that we've got is 4 or 5 and up to 7 times higher than any other engine's Docker containers. So we're really proud of that. We're really happy that the community's adopting it and making it a better product for our open source offerings. What are the advantages of containerization? Well, at this point, you've probably been living under a rock if you don't know what containerization is. But let's just kind of give an example if you haven't gotten into that space. First advantage is that it offers you ubiquitous, transparent, secure CFML runtime environments. And there's a lot of things we could go into. I could talk about security. I could talk about deploying anywhere. I could talk about the fact that a developer can emulate the production and staging deployment environments with a single command to stand up their entire environment. But there's a lot of reasons that these containers, you can deploy them anywhere in a variety of circumstances in a variety of tiers globally as well. Also, we offer two supported OSs, Alpine and Ubuntu. So every image build builds both of those operating systems. And in the future, we're looking at Azure containers as well. They also provide a simple, rich mechanisms for runtime configurations. We've got some great command box modules that are built in there. In addition to some environmental support natively in the container runtime, we also bundle the cfconfig module, which allows you to configure your servers, from a single JSON file. We've also got the .env module, which sources in environmental files for configurations. And also, it gives you just consistent tier deployments with separate runtime configurations. So if you haven't gotten involved in containerization yet, know that with that 500,000 pulls and that we're approaching right there, there's a lot of people out there in the community that are adopting this technology, and there's a lot of support and a lot of help out there for you. So feel free to jump in and play, and always reach out. What's next for containerization? Well, our goal with containerization strategies, along with command box, is to provide additional tooling and instruction to encourage widespread use, and also to provide that support and development for teams in transition. We've done a lot of work with teams who are moving to a containerization strategy. We've got a lot of lessons learned along the way, and we're happy to share those. And also, the most important thing is that we continue to make our containers, as we develop them, faster, lighter, and easier to use, rinse and repeat over and over again, because that space is constantly changing, and we need to continue to innovate as well in that. So that's containerization. Let's talk a little bit about modernization, because since Luis has trademarked the Modernize or Die, that's a pretty important topic, right? So what are our strategies at Ortus around modernization? Well, first off, our strategy is to promote progressive enhancement and tooling for existing enterprise CFML applications. So we've done a lot of work on that one. If you look at some of the discussions yesterday, or some of what Luis presented with around ColdBox 6, that particular release is going to represent a giant leap forward in bringing the CFML language and the capabilities of the CFML language up to par with some of the other modern languages that are out there, the shiny new penny languages that are out there. Also, we want to build frameworks with support for microservices architecture and modern UI frameworks, which we do by, for example, bundling the REST handler inside the framework so that you can leverage that immediately. ColdBox Elixir, that maintains active development and stays current with the latest trends in Webpack, SaaS, JavaScript frameworks, Vue.js, all those things like that. So if you're not using some of those tools, you're really, starting out at a disadvantage. Those tools are there to help you rapidly develop CFML applications, because ultimately we want CFML to be a viable language and a language that continues to live and grow within the web application space. So stay up to date as well and provide ongoing evolution of our tools and capabilities. We continue to do that with our Docker. We're introducing, we stay up to date with, for example, Elasticsearch and other technologies that are out there. We're always learning, we're always growing, and we'll continue to do so. So our modernization lessons, what are the things that we've learned, or what are the lessons that we've kind of taken away from our efforts in modernization, and also helping others with their modernization problems? Well, first of all, I can't stress it enough that perceived latency is the brass apple or brass ring. Brass apple's weird. I should have said ring. Perceived latency is king. And what that means is that now more than ever, users are impatient and they demand very quick responses to the actions that they take. If they click something and that click is supposed to save something, they expect that to happen very rapidly and for the application to transition and move on, which also makes the case for modern UI frameworks and API design. We've also learned that modularization is essential. It's not optional anymore. And the reason for this is because as applications are deployed and they experience load, and we start to identify those areas in which those applications maybe receive more traffic or have higher resource usage, those modules can then be broken out, which is the next point, into multifunctional builds, which allow for the integrated development in different production environments. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a segment of my application or a module in my application that maybe gets a lot of usage, and that module contains code that has a lot of processing. Maybe it does image processing, maybe it signs PDFs, who knows what it does. With multifunctional builds and modularity, I have the ability to deploy that module alone as a separate application, as a separate service, and then just use the power of modern load balancing to make sure that traffic is distributed and clustered to minimize the processing impact and the potential for that one module to bring down or slow down my entire application. One other lesson we've also learned is to consume standardized objects in your UI. So one of the things that CFML developers are very comfortable with, those of us who've been developing a long time and we've been using for a long time, is CF Query. Well, CF Query is great. It served a great purpose. It was innovative in the way that in the way that it handled and provided data from databases in its day. But at this point, if you're not using standardized objects, structs and arrays in your code, you're setting yourself at a disadvantage because you're creating a pain point in any additional refactoring and growth that's going to have to be there. That doesn't mean you can't use CF Query, but converting those queries to standardized objects and transforming your application to use those by default is going to set you up to modernize long term and allow you to do it more progressively in your application, rather than factoring out all of these different instances of if.row count and all the things that are specific to the CF Query object. Not only that, but once you start to integrate that and you start to use those standardized objects, you can take advantage of modern CFML programming by using member functions and also CB streams as well. So one of the things, parallelization or parallel pipelines of those objects. So those are a couple of modernization lessons. Let's talk about APIs. It's something that we've been very passionate about with regard to microservices over the past 4 years, but even before that. And let's talk about documentation, dissemination, design. So one of the things that's very important to us at Ortus is to make sure that we are providing the tools to develop microservices, modernized applications. And in addition, and on that note, we have several tools. So for one of the ones is our Relax tool. Now version 4.1 of Relax was released yesterday. It continues to provide additional support for OpenAPI version 3, which is the standard for describing or documenting OpenAPI. Those schemas can be transferred to a variety of different products and tools to either document or to test APIs, such as Postman, for example. You can just import an OpenAPI schema right there. And we also continue to maintain backward compatibility for OpenAPI version 2. It automatically consumes cbSwagger, which is a module that's bundled with it, which will allows you to document your APIs within your components. And we'll talk about that in a second. OpenAPI JSON and also the YAML formats for OpenAPI as well. And this version 4.1 rewrites the entire front end of Vue.js, which gives us significant performance improvements on large documents. So right now, we were finding that the old UI design, which was built on Backbone, was causing massive slowdowns when we were dealing with API with thousands of paths and potentially, or hundreds of paths and thousands of additional responses and things like that. The Vue.js rewrite solves that problem. It makes it significantly faster. So that's Relax version 4.1. Hope you'll take a look and check it out. Along with that is our companion, cbSwagger. Version 2.1.0 is out. It allows you to use component annotations in your API handlers to provide rich documentation. And there's a variety of ways you can do that. cbSwagger version 2.1 updates to OpenAPI and OpenAPI version 3. And the convention routes for samples and response bodies have been baked in, which means that you can actually generate your documentation from your tests. So as you run those integration tests, if you simply save the responses to the convention directories with the name of those routes and the methods, it will automatically, cbSwagger will automatically detect those and include those as samples for your API documentation, which makes that whole process of defining JSON schema and all the other stuff that you might have to do manually in a JSON file super easy. Enhanced support for granular route-based security. So we've added some additional handling for routes and specific security schemes that are required by specific routes. All right, new for 2020 is cbCommerce. This is a module that we've been working on for a long time. It's actually been deployed live, but we've now moved it to an open source project and in the final processes of baking this for the community. So new for 2020 is cbCommerce. It is built with enterprise e-commerce in mind. We designed it with content box modularity to allow non-technical users to manage their inventory and pricing and all the things that might need to be handled in an e-commerce. Prior to moving into web development and changing my career path, I spent 14 years with a Fortune 50 retailer. In addition to that, that was my entry point into web development, was e-commerce as well. So in looking back on that time and all those lessons, I've been able to apply a lot of the things, a lot of the lessons, and a lot of the retail logic to that as well. It also includes built-in support for shipping, sales tax, VAT, event, and inventory lifecycle pricing, and supports multiple payment processors. So when we release this, which will be at the end of Q2 2020 open source, you will have an API-driven backend. You'll have reusable Vue.js components. You don't even need to use the built-in API. If you're currently using Vue.js and Webpack, you can simply import individual components from the application and reuse those in your existing app and templates. It includes robust security, and we'll be launching with Stripe processing at the end of Q2 this year. By the end of Q4 this year, we'll offer the PayPal, Apple Pay, and Amazon payment support integrated within the module. And by Q1 2021, we'll also build in an optional Elasticsearch integration as well. So cbCommerce, stay tuned before the end of 2020. And now we're going to kind of take it back to containerization, and I'm going to turn it over to Pete Freitag, who's going to talk about some really innovative work that he's been doing with Docker. Some exciting work that we're really, as we talked earlier, that containerization space has exploded. And we're really excited to see folks adopting it and making it their own and innovating. And I want to highlight Pete because he's done some outstanding work with that of late. So Pete, take it away.
All right, thank you, John. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, so a recent project that I worked on is something called MiniBox. And MiniBox is a It's a Docker container that's designed to be as small as possible. So all it contains is a command box, Java, and an operating system, which is Alpine Linux in this case. And so the size that I've been able to get it down to at this point is 78 megabytes. So, and it could probably get down a little bit smaller besides that. So why would I want to build a container this small to be able to run? What would I use it for? So the main reason I built this was for Fixinator, which is the code security scanner that my company builds. So when you're running it in a continuous integration environment, you want it to be able to run as quickly as possible. And so the Ortus Docker images, while they're great for running Cold Fusion servers and Lucy servers in production, they're not really optimized for the task of, say, just running a simple command box command. So that's what this is built for, is really just doing like a short execution time processing designed to optimize that sort of thing. So it's really good for CI tools as well as tasks. I know Brad Wood has done a lot with task runners with Minibox already so far. So a couple of things that I've built with them so far. So I built a Docker image for Fixinator based on Minibox that really is just Minibox plus it installs the Fixinator command box command. And then I've got another Docker image called CFML CI tools, which has Minibox, Fixinator, CFLint, CFCompiler, and Code Checker already pre-installed. So you can use that in your CI to run all these various tools from that one base image. And that's still, I think that image with all those tools installed is still maybe around 90 megabytes. So it's still very small. So in my presentation yesterday, I was actually using Minibox quite a bit. People probably didn't realize that, but if you go to this repository here, the Foundeo/CFML CI examples, we can see some of the different things that, so this was some of the different things that it was doing. Was it was running the cfcompile command, which actually compiles the code on a specific version of Lucy to see if there's any compilation errors. So that can happen every time you commit your code. It's running Fixinator, which does the security scan of all the code. Within this test API, I was really just using it to start up a simple server for testing, as well as with TestBox, the same thing. We're just using it to start up a server with box server start. But it was providing as my base container to run all these commands, because the advantage there of having it so small is that it doesn't take up so much time to download such a large image. So it executes a lot faster, and your codes, all your tests finish much quicker. All right, so if you want to try it out, if you've got a terminal open, you can do it really simply if you just do something like docker run -it foundeo/minibox box version. And that's going to just, it's going to pull down the container if you don't have it installed already, and it's going to boot up the operating system and execute the command. And if I actually want to have an interactive box shell, I can do this. And we're actually in command box now. If I just do something like this, uname-a, even though I'm running Mac, now I'm inside a Linux command box shell. So it's kind of cool, the stuff you could do with that. Here's how you could run Fixinator right from your command line. In this case, we have to mount a volume, and we're also passing an environment variable. So another thing you could do is task runners. So I've got a real simple task runner here that really just prints out something like, hello, this is my task when you execute it. So to run a task runner, you could also mount a volume, or in my case, I just created a new Docker file, really simple, from Minibox, make a dir to put my code into, and I copy the task.cfc into this tasks folder. And then you don't have to use a Docker Compose for this, but I think it's a lot easier. So then I create a Docker Compose file that just tells it to build this current Docker file with the entry point of running box task run and then the task file. So if I exit out of this and run Docker compose. Now it's going to execute my CFML task inside this. And so a couple cool use cases for this. Brad was recently talking about how he's used this on to replace a scheduled task that was written in like 300 lines of shell script. He got it down to like 70 lines of CFML code, and it's running inside a Jenkins CI. So I thought I would try to one-up him a little bit and do it. Same sort of thing here. What I've done here is I am running it inside GitHub Actions. So I created the scheduled task here, runs every 5 minutes. You have to specify the base container the task runs on. Has a Linux operating system in order to use Docker and GitHub Actions. I check out my code, run my task by simply saying, this task uses this particular Docker image with the entry point of box and the arguments task run. So when I do that, you can see that every 5 minutes it's been executing this scheduled task inside here with my output. So that kind of just shows you some of the types of things you could do with this. I'm sure there's a lot more you could do with it. It's not really designed to run your servers on it, although you probably could. It's just the Ortus images have a lot more tools and optimizations put into that sort of thing. But just wanted to show that off real quick. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Pete.
You're welcome.
Who up next?
I'm sorry, that is me.
Michael.
That is myself. All right, let me share my screen here. And I'm going over CB Elasticsearch. So the past, present, and future. If you missed my CB Elasticsearch talk yesterday, that's unfortunate, but we're going to have those videos for you. So you'll be able to catch that soon. So just quickly, what is CB Elasticsearch? CB Elasticsearch is a Cold Fusion CFML API wrapper for Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch being a very powerful search server. So CB Elasticsearch just offers this cold box module you can install and immediately very easily offer integration with Elasticsearch into your cold box app. So you don't have to issue those API calls manually. You don't have to work with the Java library. Just offers a nice fluent interface for handling search in your application. So I wanted to cover the last 12 months or just some highlights from what's gone on recently in the last year of development. And lately, I'm going to cover my roadmap as well. So one of the highlights was in 1.1.3, we added the update by query method. So we added the ability to find and update documents via like a conditional query and then a script. So in an example here, you can see someone has spelled my name wrong in some documents. So what I'm doing in this query is just searching for documents with the author name of Michael Bourne with an E. And what I'm doing is actually updating that via script to set that to Michael Bourne and remove the E. So hopefully now you know how my name is spelled, right? In CB Elasticsearch 1.2.0, so kind of a big release, we added support for Elasticsearch 7. Elasticsearch 7 kind of dramatically changed the way types work on indexes and documents. So we just kind of brought that up to be compatible with ES7. We also added an alias builder, which allows you to create an alias, which kind of helps you map between an old and new index name. If you're migrating an index over, the alias is there to make sure that you have a seamless transition from the old to the new name, so you never have any downtime when you're renaming your index. In Elasticsearch, CB Elasticsearch 1.3.0, we added support for Elasticsearch tasks. This just helps you work with those longer running operations. You can see here I've got an example where I'm actually re-indexing, and I pass wait for completion false. And what Elasticsearch is going to do is process that in the background. And it was actually going to notify me, or I can check the is complete method every 5 seconds in this example to see when that is completed. So kind of more asynchronous, makes it really nice so you don't have to wait for that to complete. In CB Elasticsearch 1.4.0, we added support for query suggestions and auto-completion. So two different methods kind of handle those. First one is suggest term. So did you mean? User submits a search for Carl Perlins, and Elasticsearch is going to look at that and is going to look at the data it has in its index, and it's going to say, hey, did you mean Carl Perkins, right? Artist name, probably Carl Perkins is a better match. So just a nice way to return those suggestions back to you. Very, very handy if you want a more advanced search, if you want a little bit more impressive search, a little bit more Google-like. And secondly, we have autocomplete via suggest completion. So in this example, I'm doing a search for is Elvis still? And Elasticsearch is going to look at the data it has, and it's going to guess that you're probably looking for the phrase, is Elvis still alive? So it's going to return that suggestion to you in the results, and you can offer that suggestion to the user, usually in your autocomplete dropdown. All right, for future roadmap, next 12 months, some things we're looking at adding in the future. One of the things that would be really nice is nested queries. This gives you the ability to nest your search builder objects, and it just makes it much easier to offer more complex queries, but breaking them down into kind of discrete chunks. So it makes it possible for you to reuse pieces of your query. You could have an author filter, which is kind of a reusable method. You could reuse those author filters, those author searches in many different aspects of your application, and yet kind of build them into one search to just handle much more powerful searches that way. Ingest support is another thing we're looking into adding, support for indexing binary attachments. This is something that Elasticsearch offers with a plugin or an extension, and it just allows you to take in a PDF or docx file, PowerPoint, for example, and actually read the data, the text data out of those and index them, process them in Elasticsearch. So you can search your PowerPoints, you can return PowerPoints to the user off their PowerPoint files directly in your search results. Index snapshots is another thing we're looking into, building a snapshot builder. I'd be very excited about this. It allows you the ability to essentially back up and restore from point in time snapshots of your index. And lastly, I would love to see integration with ColdBox 6 futures. This would just greatly improve the asynchronous capabilities of CB Elasticsearch if we can integrate with futures. So in this example, you can see I'm doing a save all call, and I'm passing a array of documents as persons, and I'm just passing as future equals true. And then what we get back is a promise, a future, sorry, which we call then, and ColdBox is going to execute our closure on completion. So we don't have to worry about polling every 5 seconds. We don't have to worry about nothing. ColdBox just takes care of it, and we can do a log or whatever we want. We could send an email when those are done saving and so forth. Just really powerful stuff. So this is something that we're really interested in adding now that ColdBox 6 Futures is out. And by the way, if you're interested in this ColdBox 6 Futures stuff, you're going to have to check out Luis's session, which is right after this keynote. All right, thank you very much. This was the session on Michael Bourne, CB Elasticsearch. Now I would like to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Gavin Pickin.
Thanks, Michael. I love that picture of you. That shows how bad this pandemic is treating me.
Oh, man. I didn't know that was me.
But this is what I used to look like before the pandemic. I'm Gavin Pickin, and I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of things very quickly, because as usual, we can never fit a keynote in an hour. Last year we had 1 hour. This year we have 2 keynotes, so we have 2 hours and we still can't make it work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about CF podcasts. So we have a variety of podcasts. We've started Ortus, but why did we start podcasting? Well, podcasting is a great way to consume information when you're doing other things like working out or traveling, going to the grocery store, etc. And podcasting is getting really popular these days. It's really grown in popularity, and we wanted to use that to help build and grow this Cold Fusion community. And quite frankly, as you can tell from the keynote, it's really hard to keep up with what's going on with Ortus, but also just the CFML world. And so we thought podcasting would be a way to solve that. And there's some interesting stats, and these ones are just for audio only, but almost 77%, and these are people who responded to the survey, listen to podcasts for more than 7 hours a week. And 61.2% of respondents spend more time listening to podcasts than they do watching TV. I'm curious about YouTube too, because we have audio versions of our podcasts as well as video versions as well. So we decided to, double down and basically YouTube and podcasts and see what we can do. So why podcasting? Well, we decided to do 3. And the reasons is because we have a different style for each of the podcasts. We have different content, different links, different hosts and guests, and different life of span of content. So let me talk about them really quickly here. So our main one is our Modernize or Die CFML News Edition. This is the app here, and these are all the different ways you can subscribe. So you can do Pocket Cast, you can do Spotify, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, you can listen and watch on YouTube. And this is the link here for the site. This is me and Brad the other day recording live. We have a cool green screen, so we have a bad looking office there out looking, I don't even know where that is, but it looks great. We have a live weekly podcast. We broadcast live Tuesday every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. And it was meant to be a shorter format, 10 to 15 minutes, but we seem to fill up 60 minutes, no problem every week, and about 90 minutes with Brad's on. Ortus and CFML community news. We bring all of it to you, so you can find out about training, product releases, webinars that are coming up. We give you a rundown of all the CFML conferences and all the other conferences you should attend as well. We spotlight and share tweets, blogs, and videos from all the best community members, so you don't have to worry about doing it yourself. We can curate it and just give you the best stuff. We also give some CFML jobs if we have them available. And every week we spotlight a ForgeBox module and a VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week as well. We have cool guests on the show too, and this one is actually Ben Adele. He was there for the Christmas special, as you can see me in my little Santa hat. But we also have another version called the Modernize or Die SoapBox edition. So the SoapBox edition has lots of different ways to subscribe and view as well. It has its own little website, soapbox.modernizeordie.io. And this version is not live. We record this and then we post them to YouTube and the podcast later. But these are a longer format, usually 30 to 60 minutes. We interview people from the Ortus team and community members. We discuss roadmaps, major versions of frameworks, tools, and modules. We also talk behind the scenes of why they're building what they're building, and not just what they're building. We also discuss real-world applications, the problems they're facing, and how they're solving those problems. And probably most importantly is what best practices and lessons learned that they have. So we really try and give you a different view. And we've had some great guests on that too. Charlie Earhart was one of my guests. And then I also had Brian Klaas. We've had several, and we want to do more and more. And then the third podcast, Modernize or Die Conference Edition. This has its own site. There's a few less options because it's brand new. But if you go to conference.modernizeordie.io, you can find out all sorts of information about conferences that are coming up. So we're going to try and partner with some conferences and then basically give you short little format, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. And it's all going to be based on the conference. There's not going to be a schedule where we do it every week or whatnot. Basically, we're going to give you content when we have it. So we'll talk to conference organizers, workshop trainers, speakers, and sponsors, and then try and give that information so you can make the decisions on which conferences you want to attend, which sessions you want to attend, and maybe which workshops you want to work at too. We have some good guests on this one as well. So a year in review, we've had 69 episodes across those 3 different podcasts. We have approximately 6,600 listens on the audio version and approximately 5,400 views or listens on YouTube. We have over 335 subscribers, and that number keeps going up every day. And in total, we have about 12,000 views or listens for the year. And so that's obviously a pretty good number. We're pretty happy with that, but we know that a lot of people still don't know about these. So we're hoping you guys can tune in and subscribe if you're not a subscriber now, but also share. Let us, let other people know about the podcast. The CFML News is a great way to keep up with everything going on in the community. So I recommend you tune in live, join the chat, and heckle us if you want. But we have a lot of great fun on that. I also have Content Box CMS I'd like to talk to you very quickly. So in Content Box in 2019 and 2020, we had 0 point releases in the last year. 0, it's kind of an interesting number, and I'll talk about that. But we had lots of customer deployments, and we had lots of feedback from clients. But why do we have 0-point releases? And the funny thing is actually it's a positive for a content box because it's a stable product, 8 years old with 4 major versions. It's used by many clients, big and small, and it's a flexible product due to ColdBox HMVC. The modularity means you can make Content Box do anything, and if you don't like what Content Box does, you can easily override it. So since we didn't need to change the Content Box core for any of our projects, and we use it on like every project, we didn't need to change the core. But that doesn't mean we didn't do anything with Content Box. This last year, we updated all our Docker images. We're now built upon the new versions that John has been working so hard on. And so Content Box is basically built upon that command box image, and it gives you all those goodness as well as a lot of extra stuff for Content Box. We have extra features in here. So we've got the big size reductions here. So we've almost saved 600 megs in some of the previous images. And also we've got extra little things here for like health checks, etc. So you can find out more on a blog post about that we've released recently. But next generation of Content Box, we're ready for that next big push, and we really want to hear from you guys. So please fill out a survey to let us know what you're using it for, if you're using it, what you need it to do, and what you'd like it to do. Because we've really been waiting for ColdBox 6 to come out because we've been waiting for those completable futures, task executors, integrated REST handler and response object, and our singleton renderer. These are going to make huge changes for Content Box, and we can't wait to get that in there. Also, we're looking at working on a theme or a layout builder because honestly, that's the biggest weakness, I think, for Content Box right now. But we've been working with a Vue.js UI tool for one of our customers. We built it as a module, so we didn't have to change anything in Content Box's core. And we use Content Store to actually store the data about that in JSON format. So far, it's been a big success. The customer loves it, and we're hoping to bring that to Content Box very soon. And we want to focus on the API core. And so we actually want to break this up a little more. We're going to go more modular with Content Box. We're going to have a CLI command option for you. So you can actually do a lot of Content Box things from the core and the CLI. We're going to have an admin piece. So you can do stuff from web, iOS, Android, and desktop. And then we're going to have a UI. So instead of just having the CF we're going to have options for doing a Vue.js front end or Node or PHP or whatever you want, because we're going to basically make it into a headless CMS. So basically here, we're going to really focus on making it usable by anything. And so we're going to go headless, going to really work on the API, and then build tools like a Vue.js UI tool built in Quasar. But the big thing is we really need your help. So please fill out the survey. We'll share that on Twitter as well. So please give us some feedback and tell us how you like it and what you want to do with it, because we want to make Content Box even better, and we're ready to do that now with ColdBox 6 coming out the door. So next up, we have Eric Peterson. I tried to go fast, Eric. Sorry.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, let's see how quick we can get through this. It's kind of hard. I have the great opportunity to tell you about some of the modules that we've released lately. There's a lot, and not only Ortus modules, but you have the whole ForgeBox ecosystem. We're going to focus on some of the core Ortus modules we find ourselves using in most of our projects, and think that they'd be useful for you as well. So let's hit it off. These are the releases, so things that have changed since the last time we met in Houston. So CB Validation had an update with multiple new validators, which makes me very happy, and also a chance to group them together as constraint profiles, so you can have different constraints when creating a user versus updating the user. If you are not familiar with CB Validation, definitely check out Will's talk from yesterday when the videos become available. You'll be doing yourself a big favor. Next up, commandbox.env. This is a command box module for helping you manage secrets with your local servers. We're pleased to say we merged with the commandbox env file by Dan Card, which gave us a bunch of new commands. My favorite being the populate command, which will help you get up and running really quick on a new project. We also added an automatic check on server start. If you're like me, you've started a server and spent hours debugging, wondering why it's not working, only to find that you forgot to add one of the new environment variables. So this will do this check for you. And if any are missing from your example file, it will not start your server, saving you hours. John already talked about Relax, but I wanted to show you the pretty picture, the pretty pixelated picture. But Relax is a wonderful tool, as he explained. And I think you're going to love this new update. Okay, now we get into our kind of our authentication and authorization section. We have quite a few modules in here that can help standardize your apps, give you access to logging users in and out, and securing your different routes. The first is cbCSRF. CSRF stands for Cross-Site Request Forgery. If you don't know what it is, this module will help protect you from what you don't know as you learn about it. But it's going to help you with the CSRF tokens, automatic token rotation when you're using it with cbAuth, and some other really great things. My favorite is this auto verification interceptor that will make sure you don't forget this token on your forms. Mentioning cbAuth, it's had a good update here. cbAuth is a library that lets you handle your logging your users in and out, distributing those sessions across whatever session storage or cache that you would like. There's a brand new Ortus book for it at cbauth.ortusbooks.com. Again, thanks to Will for putting that together for us, and some new interception points. Along with that are our two authorization libraries. The first is cbGuard, which got an update to do on-demand authorizations checks. So you can pass in not only a permission to check, like if this user is an admin, but you can pass in an object and say, does this user have permission to access this object or this one? Along with that, you can define a custom guard that doesn't even look for permissions in your database, but can do something in code. And your authorization overrides can now be either different per module or even defined in a local handler. Alternatively, you might choose cbSecurity, which includes a lot of what cbGuard has, and also adds in JWT token management and this nifty security visualizer. And nowadays, it comes default with cbAuth and cbCSRF. You can change that if you need to, but it gets you all these things out of the box, so you don't have to worry about your authentication and authorization on every app that you have to start. cbORM is getting nice minor updates here. So with support for the latest engines and criteria queries, Mementifier and cbStreams are added, and then this automatic REST CRUD, which is a great bullet point to read, has to do with using it in ColdBox 6. cbORM can now have handlers that are basically empty. You just have to define the entity that it represents, and it will do your index, your show, your create, edit, all of those, generate them for you. You just have to specify the changes, right? The deltas between what's the base and what you need yours to do. So it saves you a lot of time. Again, that's with the new cbORM 2.5 and with ColdBox 6. Mementifier has been updated with compatibility for Quick and cbORM. It now powers both of those, turning those objects into structs and arrays. You can configure the value that comes back when you get a null. And mappers, I'm going to jump down to that one, now can take in the entire memento, so you can kind of combine fields, like if you wanted to combine first name, last name into one. Whew. We're going fast. Sorry, folks. CB inertia. The good news is if you're interested in CB inertia, it's the next session. So it is a way to use modern JavaScript frameworks like Vue, React, and Svelte as your view layer and not having to build an API. So nowadays, our applications are expected to be very responsive, very interactive. And a lot of us have broken out and made an API in ColdBox and the front end using one of these technologies. And that's all well and fine, but building that API is not without its challenges and its complexities. CB Inertia is a way to, you don't have to build the API, but you can still use the front end tool. So if that's interesting to you, check out this session right after this. I think you're going to love it. It looks very similar to just using normal views in ColdBox, but you're getting all of the JavaScript goodness that you want. QB has gone through quite the release cycle. There's been 6 minor releases since our 7.0 release last year. We have a dozen contributors now. We added some great features such as built-in pagination, pre-configured builders. So if you've been passing around the data source to your query builder objects all the time, you can make your own builder and drop that. And this one by our good friend Sam Knowlton, preventing duplicate joins. So if in a dynamic query you're adding the same join over and over again, it will not add it and break your SQL. Speaking of Sam, he had a wonderful session yesterday that you should check out on the videos on QB. CB debugger support has landed in 2.0. You can now see all the queries that were ran through query execute, either grouped or in a timeline view. Excellent way to see what queries are taking the longest and maybe where you're executing more queries than you thought, maybe in a loop. So on the roadmap, we have adding some reselect and reorder methods to help with our big dynamic queries, virtual and computed columns and schema builder, JSON support for the grammars that support it. And then we're looking into making case statements easier and adding an upsert function. Okay, Quick. Quick is a ColdBox ORM. If you've used Hibernate, it is similar in thought, but not in practice. It's a way to map your Cold Fusion components to database tables and interact with them in a very simple way, built on top of QB. So performance increased up to 10% in this. The docs are all up to date, and it is out after a long beta period. Thank you, everyone who helped test. A couple of the highlights, there are way too many. There's a blog post. The docs have all of the what's new, but let's look at a couple fun ones. Subselects can go through your relationships now. So any of the constraints that you put on your relationships will apply, and you don't have to redefine all that query logic. In addition, you can now query all of your relationships, either just to see if they exist or don't exist, or even go for nested relationships and do searches on those columns, all handled for you. Mementifier, as discussed, is now powering Quick. In addition, you can skip having to call get memento yourself, especially on the collection, and use the handy as memento function, which will return it mementified for you. There's a Quick Commands command box command now. That was a lot of commands in there. That lets you specify the Quick entity you want with attributes, relationships, and you can see it is generating that all for you. Help you get up and running really fast there. Okay, and on the roadmap, we are going to look into default eager loading. So eager loading relationships every time you load an entity. Doing that async thanks to ColdBox 6's CB promises. Ever improving error messages. If you've used an ORM before like Hibernate and you hated the error messages, that is not the case here. We have an entire test suite dedicated to making sure error messages are good. We're going to look into having timestamp support built out of the box because we're always adding these columns to each of our entities. Returning more updated values automatically besides just the ID, easy soft deletes, and then when the upsert comes along, Quick will definitely support it. Okay, take a deep breath. We had to go quick through this. But there's one more thing, and I can't skip the one more thing. We'd like to announce CFcasts, which is our new video platform for learning and soon to be the home for your Into the Box videos. So you'll be getting an invite to come join here. You'll have access to the Into the Box videos without a subscription, but there will be a subscription coming that you can access the entire catalog of Ortus learning that's coming to CFcasts. So that is coming very soon. Thank you all. We'll let you get to the sessions, which we know are starting a few minutes late, but thank you all.